Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. We are in the final week of the preseason. Got a special episode coming tonight. I'm your host, Jackson McCurry, and rolling with me, as always, is my co-host, Anthony Jokey. Anthony, what's going on, brother?
Not a whole lot. I was still laughing a few seconds ago to call me boss. I don't know if that's much of the case anymore, but I guess I'll roll with this still.
Hey, you started this podcast. You're still boss in my book, brother.
All right. Right.
But like I said, final week of the preseason, Anthony. Browns are playing the Bears Saturday. We're going to project a 53-man roster since right after the Bears game, the final cutdowns will begin. They have to be set by August 30th. But Anthony, before the plan was just to do this roster cut or projected roster episode, but then Thursday morning, former Browns center JC Tretter announced his retirement after 9 seasons. Um, Wrote a pretty nice letter that was on social media, and he did mention, the elephant in the room of him being the NFL Players Union team or president, and pretty much said that that bears responsibility, and unfortunately, that does lead to a potential like blacklisting from NFL teams, and you know he was mentioned as a potential return to the Browns after Nick Harris's injury. He was tied to Tampa after their injuries along their offensive line. But I feel like at the same time, while a lot is said because he is the players president, but our players union president, but at the same time, we know the injuries Tretter dealt with in his 5 seasons here with the Browns. How he gutted through some bad injuries, his knees, his ankle. He gutted through all that. Didn't practice during the week, but always made sure he was game ready, much like Joe Thomas did on the backside of his career. I think is more apparent that I think the injuries piled up on him more so than being the union president. But I think everybody can use that as the main reason why he's no longer playing in the league.
Yeah, I think so, and I think there's a lot to be said on that. But it's I guess it's not entirely surprising to see him retire. I figured he'd either come back here or go to like Tampa Bay because I didn't really see any other spot for him that he can go to. Maybe if there's another contender somewhere, that it would have been like a slight upgrade. But with all the injuries piling up, and you mentioned him being the Players Association president. I not surprised he chose to step away. He had a pretty good career between Green Bay and here, and I don't know if it's Hall of Fame worthy or not, but him being as good as he was for those 9 seasons, I it certainly he certainly had done a nice job, over his entire career. So he's definitely one of the better ones in terms of being a center. And now he retires and he can focus on being the PA president. And I know he has a lot of issues that he wanted to tackle. As president, so now he could really focus on those.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was at the forefront of player safety. He became union president at a difficult time during the middle of a pandemic in 2020, just as they were ratifying a new CBA. He took a lot of slack for some of the things he was spoken for, or he spoke out for. When it came to player safety and everything. More recently, I think it was the Bears field and how awful it looked prior to their first preseason game. But he was a strong union president, and I think he'll continue to be that through the remainder of his term. But when you talk about him as a football player, I mean, I think he only missed one game in 5 years, and we talked about all the injuries he put up with. But the fact that he only allowed 6 sacks in his 5 years as the Browns starting center. Um, didn't give up very many pressures. He was good, one of the underrated centers in the league. I definitely don't think it's Hall of Fame worthy, but he should definitely be recognized for a successful career where he was a mid-round draft pick out of, I think it was Cornell. It was one of the Ivy League schools. Worked his way into being the starting center for the Packers before an injury ended that run. And then he came to Cleveland and really anchored the middle of that offensive line with Joel Bitonio, and then ultimately Wyatt Teller when he came over in 2019. So definitely one of the underrated centers of this generation in the National Football League. And hopefully he continues to do good things for the NFLPA going forward in terms of player safety and, leading that side of the, collective bargaining agreement against the NFL.
And wasn't the only game that he missed due to COVID, if I remember right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I mean, it really wasn't, his, something that he got hurt for that he missed the game. So, that's pretty good to not miss a game in 5 years as an offensive lineman. That's pretty special.
Definitely great player. From what I've been told, great person. So, enjoy your retirement, JC, if you somehow listen to this. And thank you for everything you did for the Browns and what you'll continue to do for the Players Union. But Anthony, we said we would talk about the projected 53-man roster. This is always a fun topic towards the end of the preseason as we head towards the regular season. So we both made a projected 53-man roster. We'll give it to you. And I figure we break it down position by position. And you might as well start with the most important position, Anthony. I think you and I are both in agreement. They're only going to keep two. And it's obviously going to be Jacoby Brissett and Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. Obviously, Deshaun won't be there for the first 11 games of the season. So, I can definitely see these two, being the two guys that are out there. I don't. Uh, Maybe Rosen could stick around on the practice squad and be the practice squad guy because he does have some mobility. So being the practice squad quarterback could be really beneficial with some of the guys that we're going to face this year. But unless there's another guy somewhere out there that they are eyeing for the practice squad, but I would be very shocked if it wasn't Brissett and Dobbs as your two quarterbacks. Come opening weekend.
Agreed. The only way I think it changes is if Jimmy Garoppolo gets released by San Francisco, not a trade. Mary Kay, others have said if he becomes available in free agency and he's willing to come here, obviously the Browns would look at that as an option, but I just don't see that happening. I don't see him taking significant pay cut to potentially only be the backup here in Cleveland. So I do think they're going to roll with Brissett and Dobbs. Going to the running back position. You and I are both in agreement again on this one. They're going to keep four. We think it's going to be Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford, the rookie out of Cincinnati. We both list Demetric Felton as running back, and I think that's just a result of how things shake out. I think he's still going to be more of a wide receiver than a running back, but I think you and I are both agreement. They keep those four. It's going to be sad to see Dearness Johnson go and even John Kelly because he's been a good contributor during the preseason, showing that he can be on an NFL roster. We know what Dearness can be too. Potentially that could be a trade piece that they, chip him off to another team to maybe add to a position of weakness here on the roster. But the running back room is so stacked. They unfortunately are going to have to make a difficult decision in that part. And we both agree it's going to be Dearness Johnson is going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, it's tough because you want to keep all these guys. I think they're all pretty good. Obviously, Chubb and Hunt are on a different level. The Dearness showed what he could do in the absence of Chubb last season for a few games. Jerome Ford has really impressed, so there's no way he's not going to be here. The only way they keep, I think, Chubb, Hunt, Johnson, and Ford is if they really move Felton to wide receiver, and then one of those guys in the back end there of the receiving group doesn't make it. But I think that this room will be nailed down to four, and if they could get something for Johnson, whether it be like a very late round pick or maybe another player, maybe on the defensive line side, that just that they could take a look at, for a little bit. Maybe that would be beneficial, but I really can't see him being here at the start of the season because of the other guys that are behind him.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's still talk about a Kareem Hunt trade. I first of all, I would have to think the Browns are blown away. But Mary Kay said on Pat McAfee's show on Wednesday that the Browns have no intention of trading Kareem Hunt. Now, obviously, if a team comes calling and blows him away with an offer like a third round pick or maybe a legit wide receiver, NFL wide receiver that can help this group that we'll discuss next. But Kareem Hunt's too valuable to this team with or without Deshaun Watson. Having Kareem Hunt here is another weapon for Jacoby Brissett. In terms of a running back, in terms of a pass catcher out of the backfield, like he's too valuable. He's one of the top 10 running backs in the league. Like unless you're getting amazing value and it's a deal you can't pass up, Kareem Hunt belongs on this team and he will make a big impact on this roster for 2022.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And, I'm very curious to see, how he could be utilized with Deshaun Watson when he returns. I think, utilizing them in like the option game together, I think would be pretty interesting. And obviously, you do play action off of that. So I think that he'll stick. They'll keep him around for a while, and maybe revisit the contract stuff off after the season with them, depending on how things go this year.
As we move to the wide receiver position, this is a position that you and I start to differ in terms of the roster construction. And I think you and I both realize like we pencil this in, but things could change because I feel like we are probably both expecting among the rest of the Browns fan base that they make a move at some point to upgrade the wide receiver position. You and I are both in agreement that Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell, Anthony Schwartz, and Michael Woods are safe. But then when it comes to wide receiver 6, you and I both differ. You went Jamarcus Bradley. I went Mike Harley Jr., the undrafted free agent out of Miami.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I put him there is because it's just like a placeholder because I think they're going to add somebody and he'll be the first to go. Whether it's via trade, whether it's via the waiver wire on roster cut down. I think he'll make like that the initial 53 man, but or even the Harley that you put will make the initial 53 man. But if there's somebody available that they're able to claim or able to trade for, I think they're first off the chopping block there.
Yeah, I would agree, but I think both could be safe for the practice squad. Harley for sure, because we've seen a lot of playing time out of him in the preseason. They've been using him as a special teams guy, which still leaves me open to the possibility. And I think it also depends on how Woods is recovering from the hamstring injury he suffered a couple weeks ago. Harley could make this team be on the active roster as a kick returner until Woods is ready to go. And then hopefully Harley can slide back onto the practice squad. But yeah, I would agree. Bradley's a potential option as well for wide receiver 6. He's been in the system the last couple of years. He's stepped up in some games and made somewhat of an impact in the wide receiver room. But I also feel like, that I think they know what they're getting out of Jamarcus Bradley at the same time. And in year 3, he hasn't really made a significant jump. So this could be the end of his time in Cleveland as well. But I could see them going either direction there.
Yeah, and if you're able to, sneak them on the practice squad, obviously they know the system a little bit. So if there's an injury to one of the receivers or something, they could be one of the first guys up. So, I don't think they'll go too far, to be honest.
No, not at all. We're both in agreement on the tight end room. We both have them keeping 3. I wouldn't be shocked if they kept 4 just because Nakia Griffin-Stewart has shown flashes in the preseason. He goes back to Minnesota with Stefanski to a degree. So there could be something there where he makes the team, but we both agree that Njoku, Bryant, and Miller Forrestall are the 3 tight ends. This could be another room where, Forrestall could just be the placeholder. They could pick up somebody off waivers. There could be a trade, could be another free agent signing. Been mentioning Darren Fells all offseason as a potential veteran option, but we both know that the tight end room has a potential shot this season, Anthony, to make a big impact. As much as people talk about the wide receiver position, they gave Njoku a lot of money. A lot of people are tagging Harrison Bryant as the breakout performer on offense this year. So I would say big expectations for the tight end room heading into 2022.
Yeah, especially with the contract that Njoku was given. Those expectations were immediate once he signed that. Um, I kind of forgot about Johnny Stanton because I think he could definitely play into this too, because he could be utilized in different spots. In the offense, lining up a fullback, lining on the as like a wing back there, uh, and like one of those tight end spots. So um, I think he could factor in here. I kind of forgot about him when doing this, but I don't think they'll keep three. Uh, or I don't think they'll keep four. I think they could keep three plus him. Obviously, somebody else would have to go somewhere. Uh, if they wanted to keep him on based on our list, but I think he could definitely be involved in that situation.
Yeah, there's always that outside possibility that Stanton makes it. I have a feeling he could make it to the practice squad again. I just don't see fullback as a like premium position anymore. Sorry, Tony Grossi. Especially with this offense. Um Stanton has shown flashes at tight end during the last couple preseasons, but I just feel like he's a bit undersized. So maybe slide him onto the practice squad and elevate him in an emergency situation as a H back where you can line him up in fullback in certain formations, and then if you want to use him as a third tight end, that's also a possibility.
And I guess it also depends too on what their game plan is going to be for like the first 11 games. Are they just going to be extremely run focused for these first 11 games without Deshaun Watson, so that way Brissett isn't making too many mistakes, because he doesn't make too many mistakes to begin with. But if you really want to minimize it and you just focus on the run game for those first 11 games of the season, maybe that's where you keep Stanton to help out with that.
Right. We don't really know what the game plan is now with Brissett under center as quarterback. Does the offense change? Does it go back to what it's been the last couple years? Or does it still continue to expand the way we thought it was going to be with Watson being the man under center? Only time will tell. We'll find out, week one as when we roll down to Carolina. But it's going to be interesting to see what Stefanski plans to do offensively in terms of running the ball or opening it up more to a passing attack style offense. We're both in agreement in terms of how the offensive line shakes out. We have Wills, or Joel Batonio, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin, James Hudson, Michael Dunn, Blake Hance, Chris Hubbard, and we both have Drew Forbes as the 10th lineman. And Anthony, I think Forbes may not have made it initially, in my opinion, until we saw Michael Dunn playing center this past week against Philly. Just knowing that he has that flexibility to play both guard and center, I think creates an opportunity for Forbes, or I can't even. I think it's Froholt is the guy's name.
Yeah,
That
yeah, that's
that
the
could
other
be
one.
the other guy, Forbes or Froholt being the 10th lineman. I think that's a battle that we might come down to the wire on this Saturday against the Bears. But I feel like we're both in agreement that these are the 10 best linemen on the Browns. Drew Forbes is hanging around. Like we haven't seen much of him in his 4 years here with the Browns, but I think there's something obviously that this group still likes. Bill Callahan likes. People seem to forget going into 2020, he was the favorite to potentially be the right guard over Wyatt Teller before he opted out. So this is obviously make or break year for Drew Forbes. He's a free agent after this year. Um, but we both have him as the 10th offensive lineman as things stand.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice to have all this depth on the offensive line. Even after the two injuries to both Harris and Dawson Deaton, it just shows how well that they've been able to focus on the offensive line, and they've been able to hit on a lot of these guys. So. They've done a really nice job kind of building this offensive line. It's night and day from where it was about, like 4 years ago. So, kudos to them, and they just continue to build up these old line guys, and a lot of that is a big thanks to Callahan. But with Forbes being the 10th guy on this, if there's maybe another tight end that they want to take a look at, or something, I could definitely see him being like the first guy cut out of this group, because it is the last year of his deal, and I don't know if they would re-sign him anyway. just for depth purposes. That's something that they could use. They could target in the draft, or use one of the other 5, 6 guys that they do have currently.
Without a doubt. As we move toward the defensive side of the ball, well, yeah, we'll just move to the defensive side of the ball. As we look at the edge room, you and I are both in agreement on Garrett, Clowney, Alex Wright, Isaac Rochelle, and Isaiah Thomas. But then when it comes to the six man in the edge room, we both have him keeping six. You have Chase Winovich, but I have Chris Odom. When it comes to me with Winovich, haven't been impressed with him at all in preseason. He's been injured the other half of the time. And we talked about Odom a couple episodes back. Loved what I saw out of him in the USFL, going back and watching some of the film. Liked what I've seen out of him in flashes in the preseason. Give me the guy that's been more consistent and I think still has some upside left in his game. And he has that relationship with Myles Garrett as well. Winovich, we swapped him for Mac Wilson. I haven't been impressed with him so much so far. I would rather go with the guy that's actually proving it out on the field, and that's why I picked Odom over Winovich.
And plus, you could argue with Odom too that he's been around for quite a while and could be maybe slightly a veteran presence, even though he hasn't been in the NFL much per se. But I think it's just a toss up between the two. I don't think it completely matters in the grand scheme of things. Because they'll be like the fifth and sixth guys in the rotation anyway. But if they do if they want to get a longer look at one of these two guys, I think that'll be the guy that makes it. But I think the practice squad would be an option for both of them. If one of them gets cut.
Possibly, yeah. And they still, they might go and snatch up another veteran or something, or somebody off another team through the waiver wire too, if they don't feel encouraged by either one of them. So
yeah, that's another position, kind of like a wide receiver, where pay attention to cut down day because and the waiver wire. I think that's a spot where they could pick up another pass rusher. Because obviously we both left off Curtis Weaver. Do you think his time is done here too?
yeah, just haven't seen much out of him. It's funny because I had seen the other day, it was like I think 2 years ago, I wrote an article saying that Andrew Berry was a genius for picking him up on the waiver wire, and letting him, like essentially redshirt because he was injured in Miami and they cut him early. But yeah, he just hasn't shown enough. Maybe he's a practice squad guy. I forget how the practice squad rules work, but you can have a 16-man roster on the practice squad. So if they still have hope that Weaver can turn into something, you put him on the practice squad. And then if the call up rules still apply the way they did the last couple years, maybe call him up if he has a great week of practice and have a certain package ready for him. But I just haven't seen enough out of him. I was very hopeful he would turn into something, but he just hasn't yet.
Yeah, and obviously, having Clowney on the other side and Garrett on one, there's not a lot of playing time to be had. So, when you have those two guys of their caliber, he didn't get a whole lot of playing time. And if I remember right, there were injuries last year too. So,
Yeah, I think so.
he just hasn't been able to get on the field much.
No, not at all. Um, we go to the D tackle room. We're both in agreement. Jordan Elliott, Taven Bryan, Tommy Togiai, and Perion Winfrey. I don't see them making much of a move here. I think we all have been, beating the dead horse to death when it comes to the interior defensive line. I feel like we've been doing it for like 10 years now, at least as long as this podcast has been going. We have, but I just don't see them making a move there. Do you have any thoughts on the D tackle room?
It's a very interesting group. Obviously it's a lot of young guys, and they all have a lot to prove, and hopefully that creates competition with them. I know Winfrey provides a lot of energy to their groups, and hopefully that'll push everybody else in a positive way. I just want somebody out of this group, whether it's Elliott, Bryan, Togai, or Winfrey, to really step up this year and be the anchor, in those interior spots. So hopefully one of these guys can do that.
Yeah, Elliott and Brian looked good in the first preseason game. They didn't play the last one. So it'd be interesting to see if how much they play. What was that?
Togi, I was gonna say Togi has gotten a lot better. It seems
Yeah,
like from
Togi
last year.
Togi is taking a step forward. Interested to see how they look Saturday because we know the starters are going to play. Winfrey has struggled. I know Stefanski mentioned that he's working through something. Obviously, it's not a significant injury because he's been, I think, out on the field every practice. I haven't heard anything about him being on the bike. Very lackluster so far. It's one of those guys where it just seems like he's a lot of bark and no bite. So hopefully, as the rookie season goes, he makes progress, but I'm just not very hopeful right now. But yeah, I hope Elliott and like Togi I could take a step forward, and I hope Bryant proves to be a solid under the radar free agent signing for this group. But only time will tell as the season moves forward. Just hope they can stop the run because they were getting gashed big time during the first couple preseason games.
Yeah, and obviously when you have Clowney and Garrett out there, that'll be different.
True.
I had a comment about all bark and no bite, but I'm going to keep that one to myself.
As we look at the linebacker room, we're in agreement. JOK, Anthony Walker, Jacob Phillips, Sione Takitaki, and Tony Fields. I think this room is so underrated. And like Tony Fields, I think has come a long way. What I've seen out of the preseason so far, that speed is going to be a big time weapon, not only on special teams, but if one of these guys were to go down with injury, which hopefully not, knocking on wood right now. I'm not saying he's going to come in and be able to replace what JOK and Anthony Walker can do, but it just gives you another weapon with that speed and that way that he can, cut across one side of the field to the other to make a tackle. Like you got to feel good about the depth in this linebacker room right now.
Yeah, and even like you mentioned, some of these guys playing in special teams, Taki and Fields and Phillips, they have speed, and a lot of that definitely matters when it comes to punt coverage and kickoff coverage. So they could definitely carve out a good role that way. If I remember right, like Taki's in the last year of his deal this year,
Correct.
so he has a lot to prove as well. Um, you know, I
Phillips has
think
a bit. This is a big year for Phillips. If he can stay healthy, he can be
right.
another big contributor.
Yeah. As long as he can stay available, stay healthy, I think he'll be okay. I remember listening to one of his interviews early on about staying healthy this year and how this offseason that he was able to prepare very well because he wasn't he was fully recovered. So I'm excited to see what he has. Obviously we know what JOK can do, and I think that he's one of the more exciting players on defense. Hopefully he can start to get some more of the credit that he deserves. I think with him being a rookie last year and going into year two now, he's really going to have a bigger role in this defense being in year two. So I'm excited to see the different things that he's able to accomplish this season.
Yeah, definitely. JOK is a potential superstar in the making, and if you have a superstar at every level of the defense, you got to feel really good about your defense going forward. If we move to the cornerback room, we're in agreement on the first five: Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Greedy Williams, AJ Green, Martin Emerson. Then that final one, you have Herb Miller, who has shown some flashes in the preseason. I'm going with Lavert Hill. They picked him up in the offseason out of Michigan. I think he's undrafted free agent. Like some of the stuff I saw, Alex was telling me, Alex Hale, our draft guy here at the Dogland, who we should be having on next week to talk about some early draft prospects. Was telling me about him. Obviously, Alex being a former Michigan fan. This is a third year player, Lavert Hill. But I like what I've seen out of him so far. He's got some decent speed. Definitely could be a guy that can help on special teams. And, the Browns have been so good at developing corners the last couple of years. If, Joe Woods and company can work on him, I think there's definite some upside there. Was a 3-year starter at Michigan. A little undersized, but definitely as a physical corner for a guy his size, 5'10", 190. I like what I've seen out of him. Hopefully they keep him around. But you went with Herb Miller as the final corner.
Yeah, and I haven't noticed where they have played Hill, whether it's been outside or in the slot. I think I have I have Miller there because he has played in the slot, and he would be kind of dead behind at that position. So that was my reasoning for it.
Not a problem. AJ Green. I know people have said like Greg Newsome was going to play corner. Denzel said he's open to it. I forget who it was. It might have been Corey Kinnan from the OBR, but he said he wouldn't be surprised if AJ Green was the starting nickel come week 1 and they just keep Newsome on the outside, which ultimately, like, I'm okay if Newsome's the starting nickel. I'm okay if he stays outside and they move somebody else to nickel, but um that's going to be the position to watch, I think, this season, just because we obviously traded Troy Hill back to the Rams on draft weekend, and the nickel corner is obviously open spot. Martin Emerson's more of an outside corner. But AJ Green, I think, could do that. I'm not going to say for sure he can, just because haven't seen it enough. But I've noticed some of our fellow Browns podcasters, people that work in the media, have said that they wouldn't be shocked if he does that. But I think that's going to be an interesting position to watch for sure in the secondary.
Yeah, obviously you have Greedy going into the last year of his deal too. So when you have the likes of AJ Green behind him, Emerson, who I've been really impressed with, Hill, Miller, I don't see Greedy getting cut or anything, but I don't see the Browns extending him, after the season based on the guys that are behind him. So I don't know if that could be a trade that could be had, but I would personally keep right now going into the season. I keep Ward out there, Newsome and Greedy. I keep Newsome in the slot. He played so well there last year. Uh, you know, typically, the slot guy is probably going to be a little bit faster. So I think that with Newsom can certainly do that. And obviously, you put Denzel Ward on the best guy on the other team, and these wide receivers that we have in the AFC North are pretty good. So and we play some really good ones this season too. So um, it's just going to be the three best guys out pretty well times. It's going to be uh, defense just because that's what the teams basically has been in the NFL. That's been growing, and so it's going to be the three best guys out there. But the other guys like Green and Emerson, Hill or Miller are still going to see quite a bit of playing time.
Yeah, for sure. We looked at the safety room. We both went a different route on this one as well. We both had John Johnson III, Grant Delpit, and Ronnie Harrison making the team. You had Richard LeCount, but I went with DeAnthony Bell, who is one of the undrafted free agents. Been really impressed with what I've seen out of him in the preseason so far. I could see them going LeCount as well, just because they don't have that true free safety in my book. But I think that's going to be another key battle that might come down to the wire. And you could even throw in Javante Moffett, who's been around the last couple years. They brought him back at the beginning of training camp. So this is obviously, it's going to be down to those three for the final safety spot come this Saturday.
Yeah, and that's another toss up, and another spot I think that could be, the waiver wire and roster cut down this weekend too. If there's somebody else out there that they like that becomes available. Obviously what you have in Johnson, Delpin, and Harrison. The fourth one there is kind of an unknown. So, um, I just think that spot's a toss up at the moment, and whether somebody becomes available or whether it's Bell or LeCount, um, I don't think it's going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I even threw out there, I think it was Jack Duffin talking about, could Ronnie Harrison be on the block? And he said no, because I think his contract was guaranteed. They said he said unless he gets traded somewhere, he just thinks Harrison's going to make the team. So, because I haven't really seen much out of him in preseason so far, and he was a late free agent signing. in the spring. I don't think any of us expected him to come back, but he's back. I just hope that that safety room can stay healthy, and seeing a fully healthy Grant Delpit this year, I think is going to be a good thing for that secondary.
Yeah, well, him being around pretty much all last year, basically his rookie season, going into, I know this is year 3, but really it's year 2 for him. I think there's a lot of the things that he'll be able to do and expand upon in this defense. So he's another player I'm really excited to watch on defense every week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many pieces on this defense that I think we all expect to take a step forward this year. So it's definitely going to be fun to watch. And then as we wrap up the 53-man roster, Anthony, obviously the specialist room has been set since last week when they cut Joseph Carlson. Cade York's the kicker, who has been, I think, the top rookie so far through camp and preseason. Corey Bjorquez is our punter, and of course, the legend himself, Charlie Hewlett, is the long snapper again, heading into the 2022 season.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think there really was much question about these spots. They drafted York. He won that battle pretty early on. Bjorquez, has certainly impressed. So he's got a decent look. I'm really looking forward to the special teams unit really improving this season. It's kind of been lackluster the last couple years, so hopefully, with these guys in there, they're able to do a better job this year.
Yeah, without a doubt. Not even just this, like the 3 main specialists, but hopefully the special team unit takes a step forward this year, because it wasn't the best in terms of coverage on kickoffs and punts. And Mike Prefer, I think this is a big year for him. If he wants to keep going forward as a special teams coordinator, he's really got to get that unit clicking in all phases of his group.
Yeah, and it really is terrible that they lost Jakeem Grant very early on, because I think he really would have made a true difference on special teams. So, hopefully there's somebody there, whether it's Felton or Swartz or DPJ or whoever it is as a returner. Once the kickoff, hopefully they're able to do a good job, and the guys in front of them also do a good job, and hopefully we just see some kind of improvement this year. That's what I'll take from special teams this year.
Without a doubt. So as we wrap things up, Anthony, like we mentioned at the top, this Saturday is the preseason finale against the Chicago Bears. Is there one thing that you are looking forward to watching come Saturday night?
Yeah, it's just very simple, and that's stay healthy. I mean, obviously some of the stars are going to be out there. Brissett's going to be out there and everything. Just be healthy. That's all I ask. That's all I'm looking for. Nothing else really matters to me.
Yeah, that's a big thing. But the one thing I'm looking forward to is seeing the offense out there, the starters out there, because there's been a lot of talk this week. People saying about criticizing Stefanski, about not having Jacoby Brissett out there in the preseason, not playing certain guys, but we know the majority of the starters are going to play. And I just want to see the starters go down and like put together a nice scoring drive, like Brissett and Cooper, like clicking, having, good chemistry, good timing on everything. Like just seeing this offense flow, go down the field for a touchdown. It might not mean anything, but I think it'll silence some of the local media around here, because some of the takes I've heard this week have been ridiculous. Like I mentioned, them criticizing Brissett not playing. They've been talking about, like, if week 1 doesn't go well, Stefanski's on the hot seat. They're just talking about not utilizing Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb enough. And it's just like, I don't know what these people have been watching. Like, people kind of forget that 2 years ago, Stefanski was coach of the year. I seen a stat this week talking about explosive play differential, and the Browns are one of like the top 10 teams in explosive plays. Like, I really hope Stefanski has a bounce back year just to really silence some of the critics after what happened last year, which part of it might have been his fault, but I just think the chaos surrounding everything in that organization was it was a big hurt on the team last year. And I just really hope the offense comes out and really silences critics on Saturday night, even if it means nothing.
Yeah. I mean, even if they don't score a touchdown, if they're able to, get a few first downs and get a little bit into a rhythm, I think a lot of people will feel a lot better if they show signs of promise and just kind of are able to get into a little bit of a rhythm over a few series.
Without a doubt. I mean, we don't know how long they're going to play. We know they're going to play. I know the Bears say that they're going to use their starters for like 25 to 30 plays. And I know the coaches have been in contact. So it wouldn't shock me if we see, the starting offense, the majority of it at least out there for at least a couple drives.
Yeah, it'll be nice. I obviously, like we mentioned earlier, stay healthy too. We can't afford anything else. So, and obviously on both sides, you want that. So, you know, obviously this last preseason game will go down to those last few roster spots and those guys trying to impress. Um, but as long as they come out of Saturday night relatively healthy and ready to go against Carolina, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yep, that's the main objective Saturday. Come out healthy, unscathed, and be prepared to go into battle and preparation for week 1 against Carolina, because that's going to be a big one. Anthony, is there anything else you want to discuss before we wrap things up here?
No, I think we're all good.
All righty. You guys can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Jokey. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack McCurry08, and also follow the Dogland at the Dogland. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to leave us a review. Also subscribe and share on all social media platforms. We truly appreciate you all. We'll be back either, I'd say, late this weekend or early next week to break down the roster cuts, the waiver claims, and what the initial 53-man roster looks like, because we know the bottom of it's always going to be a revolving door. So stay tuned for the next episode of the Dogland podcast. And as we get on out of here, until next time, go Browns.